So here's the thing about the Galactic Academy's combat proficiency exam. It has a 63% failure rate, a 12% hospitalization rate, and a solid 5% we don't talk about what happened to them rate. It's the kind of test that makes hardened Kragner warriors reconsider their career choices. It's the kind of exam that has its own memorial wall. Yeah, that kind of fun. And standing in the briefing hall, looking about as concerned as someone waiting for toast to pop, was Marcus Webb, human 22 Earth years old, 5'10" of, why is he smiling like that? The other cadets had started calling him that weird human, which, considering humans had only joined the galactic community 5 years ago, was saying something. Most species were still trying to figure out if humans were insane, suicidal, or just really, really bored with survival. Marcus was leaning against the wall, hands in his pockets, watching Commander Vraxis pace at the front of the room. Vraxis was a Salcrian, which meant he looked like someone had taken a velociraptor, given it a military uniform, and taught it to care deeply about regulations. His scales were an immaculate copper color. His posture was so rigid you could use him as a ruler, and his eyes held the kind of intensity that suggested he'd actually read the entire Academy handbook twice. "Attention," Vraxis hissed, his translator chip rendering his speech into crisp, authoritative galactic common. "This year's combat proficiency exam will test your ability to adapt, survive, and overcome. As such, we have implemented new regulations." A four-armed Zenthari named Kelton Prime flexed all his arms simultaneously, which was his version of a confident smile. Kelton was basically what happened when someone decided muscles needed more muscles, then added 2 extra arms for good measure. He'd been talking about his guaranteed perfect score for 3 weeks straight. "All weapons are banned from the examination arena," Vraxis continued. The room erupted. Kelton's 4 arms dropped. Someone in the back made a sound like a deflating balloon. "You will enter with only standard-issue meal service equipment. This exam will test your pure combat skill, not your ability to press a trigger." And that's when Marcus smiled. Not a normal smile. The kind of smile that makes people check their belongings and update their wills. The kind of smile that should come with a warning label. Kelton noticed. Of course he noticed. "What's funny, human? Afraid you'll break a nail without your precious human technology?" Marcus just kept smiling, his eyes drifting to the meal trays stacked by the door. "Yeah, something like that," he said quietly. Vraxis's tail twitched. He'd been around humans long enough to know that smile. That smile was trouble, but technically there was no rule against smiling, so he continued with the briefing, making a mental note to watch the human very, very carefully. What Vraxis didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Marcus Webb had spent his teenage years in Detroit. And if there's one thing humans from Detroit understood, it was that literally anything could be a weapon if you were creative enough and sufficiently motivated. The exam was in 6 hours. Marcus was already planning. The pre-exam briefing room smelled like anxiety and whatever the Glorbian student had eaten for breakfast. Spoiler alert, Glorbians should not eat sulfur-based proteins before stressful events. Commander Vraxis stood at attention, his clawed hands clasped behind his back, delivering what was clearly his favorite speech of the year. The combat proficiency exam separates the competent from the adequate, the warriors from the merely armed. Without weapons, you will discover your true capabilities. He paused for dramatic effect, his reptilian eyes scanning the room. Your ancestors survived with nothing but their claws, their wits, and their determination. Today, you honor them. Yeah, inspiring stuff. Really got the blood pumping. Most of the cadets looked like they were about to honor their ancestors by joining them. Marcus, meanwhile, was sitting cross-legged on the floor, methodically eating his pre-exam meal. The Academy provided standard nutritional gel, some kind of grain bar that tasted like cardboard's disappointing cousin, and a semi-rigid tray made from compressed biopolymer, eco-friendly, biodegradable, completely unremarkable. Marcus picked up the tray, tilted it toward the light, and squinted at it like it had just whispered secrets of the universe. "Webb, are you even listening?" Vraxis snapped. Oh, yeah, totally. Claws, wits, determination. Got it? Marcus tapped the edge of the tray with his knuckle twice, then he smiled again. That smile. Kelton Prime, who'd been doing elaborate stretches with all four arms, stopped mid-flex. What are you doing, human? Eating breakfast. You know, the most important meal of the day. Marcus took another spoonful of nutritional gel, but his eyes never left the tray. Sitting next to Marcus was Pip, a Tiktaalik, which is basically what happens when evolution gives a praying mantis anxiety, and a translator chip. Pip's compound eyes swiveled nervously between Marcus and the tray. Marcus, friend, why are you looking at your food container like that? Just appreciating the craftsmanship, Pip. Really quality stuff. Marcus ran his thumb along the tray's edge, then pressed on a corner, testing its flexibility. Hey, Pip, you gonna eat your grain bar? I have no appetite due to existential dread about the exam. Cool, can I have your tray too? My tray? Yeah, just the tray. You can keep the depressing cardboard rectangle. Pip's antennae drooped in confusion, but handed over the tray anyway. Marcus stacked it with his own, studying them both with the intensity of someone diffusing a bomb or building one. With this human, it was honestly hard to tell. Other students were starting to notice. A Valorian cadet with bioluminescent spots leaned over. Yo, what's the human doing? I think he's having a mental breakdown, someone whispered. No, wait, he's asking for more trays. Marcus had stood up and was now politely approaching other cadets. Hey, if you're not going to use that tray, mind if I grab it? Thanks, appreciate it. He collected 4 more trays in under 2 minutes, nodding pleasantly like he was gathering recyclables and not stockpiling mysterious supplies. Kelton watched this with growing irritation. Have you lost your mind, Marcus? They're trays. You can't fight a combat mech with cafeteria equipment. Marcus looked up, his arms now full of stacked trays. Kelton, buddy, you've got 4 arms and you still can't pick up on subtext. That's honestly impressive. He walked to the corner of the room and sat down, pulling out a small Academy-issue multi-tool from his pocket. Technically not a weapon, just a tiny screwdriver, a bottle opener, and a file. Standard issue for equipment maintenance. And then Marcus Webb, human from Detroit, started working. The sound of scraping filled the room. Marcus dragged the file edge along a tray's rim with surgical precision. Once, twice. Testing the angle, adjusting his grip. His face held the kind of focused calm that made Vraxis's tail start twitching again. Webb, what exactly are you doing? The commander demanded. Marcus didn't look up. Preparing, sir. You said to use our wits. I'm witty as hell. Pip scooted closer, fascinated and horrified. Marcus, that's just a tray. It's made of compressed plant fibers and biopolymer. It's designed to hold food. Yeah, Marcus said, examining his handiwork with a critical eye. It's also got a tensile strength of about 800 psi, a melting point way higher than body temperature, and if you shape it right... He paused, testing the edge he'd created. Well, let's just say it holds more than food. The room had gone quiet, except for the rhythmic scraping sound. Kelton laughed, but it sounded forced. You're making a toy, a pathetic human toy. Marcus finally looked up, and that smile was back. Sure, Kelton, it's a toy. You just keep telling yourself that. Vraxis checked his wrist display and made a note. Implement tray restriction protocol for future human cadets. The exam started in 2 hours. Marcus kept scraping. The examination arena looked like someone had taken a gladiator coliseum, a military obstacle course, and a nightmare. Then shook them all together in a bag labeled, "Good luck surviving this." 70,000 square feet of reinforced terrain, automated defense systems, environmental hazards, and one absolutely massive combat mech waiting at the far end like the galaxy's worst participation trophy. The viewing gallery was packed. Faculty members, senior cadets, and a handful of species ambassadors who apparently had nothing better to do than watch students get their asses kicked for academic credit. Commander Vraxis stood at the control podium, his claws hovering over the activation switches. Cadets will enter in groups of 5, he announced through the arena's speaker system. You have 45 minutes to reach the extraction point. Defensive protocols will activate on a randomized schedule. Lethal force has been disabled. He paused, mostly comforting. The first group of cadets filed into the staging area, clutching their makeshift weapons like security blankets. One Valorian had fashioned his tray into a crude shield. Kragner had simply bent hers into a club shape, because when you have biceps that could crack walnuts, subtlety is optional. Kelton Prime strutted in carrying 4 trays, one in each hand, bent into what he probably thought looked intimidating. And then there was Marcus. He walked in casually carrying what looked like a carefully shaped piece of tray about 8 inches long. The edges had been filed down to a disturbing taper. The handle area was wrapped in strips of fabric he'd torn from his sleeve. It caught the arena's harsh lighting at an angle that made several observers lean forward in their seats. Vraxis's eyes narrowed. He pulled up the equipment regulations on his screen, scrolling frantically. Biopolymer tray, standard issue. Mechanically altered, but still technically just a tray. No external weapons added. No prohibited materials. Damn it, it was legal. Is that a human holding a knife? Someone in the gallery whispered. It's a tray, Vraxis said through gritted teeth. Technically, Kelton noticed Marcus's creation and burst out laughing, his forearms gesturing dramatically. That's your secret weapon, a pointy piece of garbage? I've got 4 of these trays, human, 4. That's 4 times better than yours. Marcus glanced at Kelton's bent tray clubs, then at his own carefully crafted implement. Yeah, Kelton, that's definitely how math works. You're crushing it. Pip scuttled in last, holding his tray like a very ineffective shield, his antennae twitching with nervous energy. Marcus, I do not feel adequately prepared for this examination. Nobody is, Pip. That's the point. Cadets, ready, Vraxis's voice boomed through the arena. Marcus rolled his shoulders, testing the weight and grip of his tray weapon. He'd carved a functional shiv from breakfast equipment. In 2 hours, the edge wasn't razor sharp, but it was definitely an introduce you to regret sharp. Begin. The arena floor erupted with activity. Obstacles rose from hidden panels. Environmental barriers activated with humming force fields. And from the walls, a dozen spherical defense drones detached, their optical sensors glowing an aggressive red. Standard procedure, these drones used sonic disruptors and kinetic dampeners to disorient and incapacitate. Non-lethal, but absolutely miserable to experience. Most cadets' strategy involved dodging using shields or trying to smash them with clubs. The Valorian with the shield took a sonic blast and went down immediately, clutching his head. The Kragner swung her club tray at a drone and missed by 3 feet. Kelton tried to grab 2 drones at once with his forearms and got hit by dampener fields that made him move like he was stuck in molasses. And Marcus? Marcus moved. He didn't charge. He didn't panic. He watched the drone's movement patterns for exactly 5 seconds, then stepped into range of the nearest one. The drone's sensor locked onto him, preparing to fire. Marcus's hand flicked out. The tray shiv caught the drone's sensor housing at a precise angle, not hard enough to shatter, but just right to pop the casing open. Sparks flew. The drone's targeting system went haywire, spinning in confused circles. "Oh, you have got to be kidding me," someone said in the gallery. Pip watched from behind his inadequate shield, his compound eyes wide. Did Marcus just disable a military-grade drone with a breakfast tray? Technically, it's a biopolymer improvised blade, Marcus corrected, moving toward the next drone. This one he approached from the side, using the first disabled drone as cover. When it fired a sonic burst at where it thought he'd be, Marcus was already sliding underneath, his tray weapon jabbing upward into the drone's thruster port. The drone made a sad whirring sound and dropped to the floor. In the control room, Vraxis stared at his monitors in absolute silence. Sir, his assistant, a Tiktaalik named Zira, ventured carefully. "Should we be concerned that the human is winning?" "Winning implies he's competing," Vraxis said slowly. "That looks more like he's offended by the drone's existence." Marcus disabled his 3rd drone, then turned to Kelton, who was still wrestling with dampener fields and his own 4-tray strategy. "Hey, Kelton, you doing okay over there? Need me to wait up?" "I don't need help from a human with a pointy tray." Cool. Just checking. Marcus moved toward the next obstacle section, casually stepping over disabled drones like they were potholes. Pip scurried after him, having decided that staying near the terrifying human was somehow safer than staying with anyone else. Marcus, how did you know where to strike the drones? Same sensor housing as the practice units in Engineering Lab C. Just got to know where the weak points are. He said this like it was obvious, like everyone spent their free time memorizing the structural vulnerabilities of Academy equipment. Behind them, Kelton finally freed himself from the dampener field and roared in frustration. Ahead of them, the arena's second challenge zone was activating, and Marcus Webb was smiling again, twirling his tray weapon like he was auditioning for a very strange cooking show. Vraxis made another note. Restrict human access to engineering labs. This was going to be a long exam. The second challenge zone was what the Academy politely called adaptive terrain response. Everyone else called it the floor. Is literally trying to kill you now. Platforms rose and fell on hydraulic pistons, creating a constantly shifting landscape. Miss a jump, and you'd plummet into foam pits that wouldn't kill you but would definitely disqualify you. And weaving between all of it were more defense drones, now operating in coordinated attack patterns. Marcus stood at the edge, watching the platforms move, timing their cycles, calculating trajectories like he was doing very violent Sudoku. You know what I love about automated systems, he said to Pip, who decided that Marcus was his new best friend / potential life insurance policy. They're predictable, they follow patterns, they don't improvise. Unlike humans? Unlike humans, Marcus grinned and launched himself onto the first platform. What happened next would later be described by Zira, Vraxis's assistant, as aggressively efficient, and by Kelton as complete nonsense that shouldn't be physically possible. Marcus didn't just cross the platforms. He turned them into a weapon delivery system. A drone swooped in from the left. Marcus waited until he was mid-jump between platforms, twisted in midair, and used his tray shiv to redirect the drone's trajectory into a rising platform. The impact sent the drone spiraling into a wall with a satisfying crunch. That doesn't even make sense, Kelton shouted from 3 platforms back, struggling to coordinate all 4 arms for basic jumping. In the observation gallery, Vraxis was now standing, his tail rigid, watching the security footage with the intensity of someone witnessing their entire worldview crumble. He rewound the last sequence, watched it again, enhanced the image. He calculated the drone's momentum, the platform's velocity, and his own angular momentum in approximately 0.7 seconds. Zira said, consulting her datapad. That's not possible. And yet, on screen, Marcus landed on another platform, immediately ducked under a sonic blast, and jammed his tray weapon into the seam of a platform joint. He levered it like a pry bar, and the hydraulic system for that section gave a pneumatic wheeze of protest. The platform locked in place, creating a stable bridge. "Oh, that's just cheating," someone in the gallery muttered. "It's tactical thinking," another voice countered. "It's insane is what it is." Pip managed to scramble across the now stable bridge Marcus had created, his antennae vibrating with a mix of terror and admiration. "Marcus, friend, I think you may have anger issues with inanimate objects." "Pip, buddy, these objects are shooting at us. I'm just returning the sentiment." Marcus yanked his tray weapon free from the hydraulics, and they kept moving. Behind them, Kelton finally made it across the platforms, all 4 arms flailing. "This means nothing, human. Wait until we reach the combat mech. That requires real strength, real warrior spirit." "Sure thing, champ," Marcus called back, not even looking. They pushed deeper into the arena. More drones appeared, these ones flying in synchronized attack formations. The Kragner cadet tried to smash one and got tagged by 3 others simultaneously. She went down cursing in her native language, which the translators wisely chose not to interpret. The Valorian with the shield was already out, sitting in a disqualification zone, looking traumatized. It was basically down to Marcus, Pip, Kelton, and 2 other cadets who were doing their absolute best to stay out of everyone's way. Marcus assessed the drone formation, then did something that made Vraxis actually hiss in disbelief. He started breaking his tray weapon. What are you doing? Pip shrieked. Upgrading. Marcus snapped off a thin piece from the edge, tested its weight, then threw it like a throwing knife at the nearest drone. It hit the sensor array dead center. The drone wobbled and crashed. You just threw away part of your weapon. Nah, Pip, I made more weapons. Marcus held up his hand, showing 3 more carefully broken pieces, each shaped and weighted. Remember those extra trays I collected? Wasn't just being greedy. He'd been preparing, creating redundancies, making multiple tools from multiple trays. While everyone else had been freaking out, Marcus Webb had been running probability scenarios and manufacturing an entire arsenal from cafeteria supplies. The human is using prison tactics, Vraxis said in the observation room, his voice strangled. Sir, this is exactly how inmates create improvised weapons. He's applying criminal methodology to academy examinations. Is that against regulations? Vraxis checked. It wasn't. Somehow, incredibly, it wasn't. Marcus threw another tray fragment, disabled another drone, then used the main piece of his weapon to pry open a maintenance panel. Pip, hold this. What is this? Drone charging station. If I just reroute the... Yeah, okay, that works. Marcus did something with the wiring that definitely violated several safety protocols. The remaining drones in the area suddenly powered down, their batteries drained. That's cheating, Kelton roared, having finally caught up. That's reading the technical manual for the arena systems during Tuesday's library session, Marcus corrected. Studying. For the exam. Wild concept. They were now inside of the final challenge. The combat mech stood 30 feet tall, its armor, plating, gleaming under the arena lights. It was designed to require teamwork, strategic thinking, and coordinated attacks to defeat. It was designed for conventional thinking. Marcus looked at it, looked at his remaining tray weapon pieces, then looked at Pip. Hey, Pip, how fast can you run? Pip's antennae drooped. Why do I feel like I'm about to regret our friendship? Because you're smart. Okay, here's the plan. And Marcus Webb, human from Detroit, explained the most absolutely ridiculous strategy anyone in the Galactic Academy had ever heard. In the observation gallery, someone started taking bets on whether it would work. Vraxis just updated his regulations document again. No humans, he muttered. Next year, no humans at all. The combat mech activated with a sound like a cargo ship clearing its throat. Its optical sensors glowed orange, scanning for targets. Standard Academy protocol. The mech was programmed to test teamwork, tactical coordination, and the ability to identify and exploit weaknesses under pressure. It had 16 different attack modes, reinforced armor plating, and absolutely zero patience for nonsense. Kelton Prime saw his moment for glory and charged forward, all 4 arms spread wide. Finally, a real challenge. I'll show you how a true warrior fights. The mech's arm swung out almost lazily and swatted Kelton 15 feet backward into a foam barrier. He landed with a sound like a bag of wet cement hitting pavement. Teamwork, Kelton, Marcus called out. It's in the briefing, the one you didn't read. I don't need teamwork. I need these puny machines to respect my strength. Cool plan. How's that working out for you? Kelton charged again. Got swatted again. This guy had the learning curve of a brick wall. The 2 other remaining cadets, a Salcrian named Vex and a Glorbian named Thum, tried a flanking maneuver. The mech's targeting system tracked them both simultaneously and deployed sonic disruptors. They went down clutching their heads. And that left Marcus and Pip. Okay, Pip, remember the plan? Pip's entire body was vibrating with anxiety. The plan where I act as bait for a 30-foot killing machine while you do something you described as probably suicidal, but definitely hilarious. That's the one. I knew you were paying attention. Marcus, I have severe concerns about your definition of friendship. Just running a figure-8 pattern like we discussed. Trust me, Pip made a sound like a sigh, a whimper, and a prayer to insectoid gods all mixed together. Then he scuttled forward, his legs moving in a blur. The mech's sensors locked onto the small, fast-moving target. It tried to track him, its massive frame turning, weapons systems recalibrating for a target that kept changing direction. Meanwhile, Marcus ran, not at the mech, around it. He'd noticed something during his totally legal, definitely not against policy observations of the arena. The maintenance catwalks ran along the upper walls, and those catwalks had cable systems for the lighting rigs, and those cables looked weight-rated for approximately one human-sized mass. Marcus scrambled up a platform support, jumped to a cable junction, and started climbing while the mech was focused on Pip's erratic running pattern. In the observation gallery, half the crowd was watching Pip's survival sprint. The other half was watching Marcus climb with the kind of reckless confidence that made safety officers weep. "What is he doing?" Zira asked. Vraxis didn't answer. He'd entered a state of resigned horror. Marcus reached a catwalk directly above the mech, pulled out his remaining tray weapon pieces, and studied the mech's design. Every combat unit had the same vulnerability: cooling vents for the processor core, usually protected, usually inaccessible, usually not a problem because WHO climbs 30 feet up during combat. Humans do that. Pip, pattern delta. Pip, who was now running on pure adrenaline and survival instinct, switched to running in tight circles directly under the mech. The targeting system tried to track the spiraling movement, its processor working overtime, which meant the cooling vents opened wider to dissipate heat. Marcus timed his jump perfectly. He dropped from the catwalk, falling 20 feet, his tray weapon pieces held in a reverse grip. He landed directly on the mech's shoulder joint, caught a handhold, and immediately jammed a tray fragment into the cooling vent. The mech systems made a sound like a computer having a stroke. "That's one!" Marcus shouted, scrambling to the next vent location. "One? There are more?" Pip wailed, still running. Marcus wedged another fragment into the secondary cooling system. Sparks flew. The mech's movements became jerky, its targeting solution degrading. It swung an arm, trying to dislodge the human-shaped problem on its back, but Marcus was already moving, climbing the mech's frame like it was a very angry jungle gym. Kelton, recovering from his latest failed charge, watched in absolute bewilderment. "He's climbing it? You can't just climb the enemy?" "Pretty sure he's doing exactly that," Vex muttered, recovering from the sonic blast. Marcus reached the mech's head unit, hung upside down from a sensor array, and looked directly into the main optical lens. "Hey there, big guy. Nothing personal." He jammed his main tray weapon directly into the primary sensor cluster and twisted. The mech systems went haywire. It spun wildly, alarms blaring, trying to shake off the human parasite. Marcus held on, riding the spinning mech like the galaxy's worst rodeo, using his last tray fragment to pry open the emergency shutdown panel. "Pip, extraction pattern." Pip stopped running and dove for cover. Marcus pulled 3 wires, crossed 2 circuits, and jumped clear as the mech's emergency protocols activated. The machine powered down with a descending whine, stumbling forward and collapsed face first into the arena floor with a thunderous boom that shook the entire complex. Silence. Absolute, stunned silence. Marcus landed in a roll, came up on his feet, brushed dust off his uniform, and looked at his demolished tray weapon pieces. "Well, that's not getting the deposit back." Pip emerged from cover, his antennae standing straight up in shock. You defeated a combat mech with cafeteria equipment. And creativity. Don't forget creativity. Kelton just stood there, all 4 arms hanging limp, his brain clearly trying to process what he'd just witnessed and failing to compute. In the observation gallery, someone started clapping, then another person, then the entire crowd erupted in applause mixed with confused shouting. Vraxis stared at his screen, then at his regulations document, then at the downed mech, then at Marcus Webb standing calmly in the arena like he'd just finished a light workout. The commander's claws moved across his datapad with sharp, decisive taps. Zira, new regulation, effective immediately. All meal service equipment for human cadets will be replaced with edible substrate that dissolves upon contact with air. Sir, that seems extreme. Extreme? That human just turned breakfast into a tactical assault on Academy property? On the arena floor, Marcus helped Pip to his feet. "See? I told you it'd work." "Marcus, friend, I'm requesting a formal transfer to any course you're not enrolled in." "That's fair." The exam timer blinked. 27 minutes remaining. They'd finished 18 minutes early. Marcus looked up at the observation gallery, found Vraxis's face in the crowd, and gave a small, respectful nod. Then he smiled. That smile. Vraxis made another note. Investigate a human homeworld. Determine if Detroit requires a special classification. The results announcement took place in the Academy's main auditorium, which was packed beyond fire code compliance because apparently, everyone wanted to see what score the Trey incident human had earned. Marcus sat in the back row looking entirely too comfortable for someone who just traumatized an entire faculty of military instructors. Pip sat next to him, still twitchy. I have stress molted twice since the exam. Twice. That's not medically normal. But you passed, right? That's not the point, Marcus. Commander Vraxis took the podium, his scales looking somehow more rigid than usual, like his entire body was bracing for impact. Cadets, the combat proficiency exam has concluded. Scores have been calculated based on strategic thinking, adaptability, combat effectiveness, and survival capability. He pulled up the holographic display, names scrolled past with their scores. The Kragner cadet had passed with a respectable 78%. Vex and Thum managed 65% each. Pip squeaked when his name appeared with a solid 71%. Kelton Prime's name showed up with 82%, which was actually impressive considering he'd spent most of the exam getting swatted around like a four-arm volleyball. And then Marcus Webb's name appeared at the top, 97%. The auditorium erupted in noise. Kelton shot to his feet, all four arms gesturing wildly. 97? That's impossible. He used tray pieces. He used tactical ingenuity, Vraxis said, his voice tight. He identified weaknesses in automated systems, improvised tools from available materials, and executed a coordinated assault on a combat unit designed to require a full team. Technically, it was flawless. Technically? Yes, technically. Vraxis's tail lashed once sharply. Which brings me to an important announcement. Effective immediately, the Academy is implementing new equipment protocols. A new hologram appeared, showing what looked like regulations written by someone having a slow mental breakdown. Regulation 477 Alpha. Human cadets are prohibited from receiving meal service equipment manufactured from rigid materials. All meals will be served on edible, rapidly dissolving substrate plates. Marcus raised his hand. Commander, question. What about the chairs? Vraxis's eye twitched. What about the chairs, Cadet Webb? Well, I'm just noticing these chairs are made of molded composite. Pretty sturdy, good tensile strength. And there's those support brackets underneath that look like they'd make excellent leverage points if someone needed to, improvise. The auditorium went dead silent. Vraxis stared at Marcus. Marcus stared back with that expression of innocent curiosity that absolutely nobody believed for a second. Regulation 477 Beta, Vraxis added through what sounded like gritted teeth. Human cadets will be provided with soft foam seating exclusively. What about the lunch trays, though? Marcus continued, completely deadpan. Because those are made of different material, different polymer composite, probably has different structural properties. Would be interesting to test that hypothesis. Regulation 477 Gamma. Humans will receive all meals in soft-sided containers. Water bottles? Soft-sided. Eating utensils? Edible utensils. The podium you're standing at looks pretty solid, Commander, just saying. Vraxis made a sound that his translator chip wisely chose not to interpret. Are you threatening Academy furniture, Cadet Webb? No, sir, just demonstrating adaptive tactical thinking. You know what you literally just gave me top marks for. The room rippled with barely suppressed laughter. Even Zero was hiding her face behind her data pad, her shoulders shaking. Kelton slumped back into his seat, all four arms crossed, muttering about humans and their weird brain problems. Pip leaned over to Marcus. Most species try to stay off the faculty's radar. Yeah, but where's the fun in that? Marcus grinned. Besides, I've already figured out that the lab tables in chemistry are made from compressed carbon fiber composite. Very interesting material properties. Very interesting. from the podium, Vraxis heard this. His claws gripped the edges of the podium so hard the metal groaned. "Meeting adjourned. Cadet Webb, my office, now." As the crowd filed out, Marcus stood up, completely relaxed, and made his way to the front. Students parted around him like he was carrying a biohazard warning. A few first years looked at him with expressions mixing awe and terror. Before he left the auditorium, Marcus paused at the door and looked back at the room, at the chairs, at the composite wall panels, at the structural support beams. He smiled. That smile. Somewhere in the administrative offices, the Academy's insurance adjusters felt a sudden chill and didn't know why. Pip watched Marcus leave and made a solemn vow to never, ever eat breakfast near a human again. Kelton sat alone, still trying to figure out how someone with only 2 arms had outperformed his 4. And in the observation room, Vraxis pulled up the admission records for the next incoming class, specifically searching for one word: human. There were 3 more scheduled to arrive next semester. He began drafting Regulation 477 Delta. All structural materials in human-accessible areas must be replaced with materials possessing 0 tactical utility. Then he paused, deleted it, and wrote instead, "Note to self. Request transfer to Diplomatic Corps. Immediately anywhere but here, preferably somewhere humans have never heard of." Down the hall, Marcus Webb whistled cheerfully as he headed to the commander's office, his eyes already calculating the load-bearing capacity of the corridor's ceiling tiles. Humanity had been part of the galactic community for 5 years. The galaxy was still not prepared, and honestly, it probably never would be.